All right, I think people are starting to arrive, and I will get us kicked off as people join us from all over the New South Wales public sector. Welcome to our last Community of Policy Professionals webinars for the year. It's been a great year, and after this webinar, we'll be sending out a year in review, probably a few things for you to check out. But as host of this meeting, I would like to acknowledge that we're on the lands of Aboriginal people today, and that wherever you may be joining us from, that this is Aboriginal land and continues to be Aboriginal land from the beginning of time to the very far into the future. So welcome any Aboriginal people who are joining us today as well, and I'll show my respect to elders present, past and emerging. To introduce our presenters today, I'm delighted to be able to showcase the work of IPAA's Young Professional Network Policy Hack. And we have our the winners from that hack. So really excited to see what they've come up with. They had a question prepared for them by Homes New South Wales, and that question was, how do we collaborate with partners to ensure that the design, delivery and management of affordable housing meets a diversity of community needs? It's a fantastic question, and I know that the proposal tapped into the potential of unlocking existing housing stock, so really interested to hear about that. We are also joined by the CEO of Homes New South Wales, Rebecca Pinkstone, who will be talking about the broader context of the housing challenge as well. But just to introduce our winners, we have Alexandra Muki. She is a commercial policy professional in the Major Projects Division at New South Wales Treasury and has expertise in infrastructure, insurance and education reform. She currently supports the procurement and delivery of complex infrastructure projects through data analysis, stakeholder engagement and policy reform. Samantha Zong is the Principal Business Analyst at the New South Wales Independent Pricing and Regulatory Tribunal, and she works on developing and maintaining systems to regulate and administer the New South Wales energy sustainability schemes. Sheridan Clark is Senior Policy Officer at the State Insurance Regulatory Authority, where she works on home building compensation policy and legislation. And finally, Alana Smith is Assistant Behavioural Advisor in the Behavioural Insights Unit within DCS, where she works on a range of projects, including conducting sludge audits that help inform policy decisions and drive service delivery reforms within behavioural science. I've heard great things about sludge audits, so welcome Alana. And Rebecca Pinkstone is the inaugural Chief Executive Officer or Chief Executive of Homes New South Wales, and that is a division, if you haven't heard of it before, within Department of Communities and Justice. And Rebecca has 2 decades of experience in the housing sector, in government and community housing, most recently in the community housing provider Bridge Housing. And she's also held roles in senior roles in policy strategy and programs in the New South Wales government. So welcome everyone. I will now, I think, hand over to our policy hack winners for their presentation, and then we will pass over to Rebecca to say a few words or talk, more than a few words, I hope, Rebecca, about the work that Homes New South Wales is doing. And then we'll have Q&A at the end with you all as well. So look forward to that then. Oh, and also, hi, Rebecca.
Another Rebecca.
Yes, another Rebecca who would like to introduce the policy hack. Also a good plug for next year, hopefully, as well.
Stunning. Thanks, Louisa. Yeah, there's a couple of Rebeccas running around New South Wales government who also go by Beck. Thanks so much for having me and giving me the opportunity to open up this morning and to introduce the IPAA Young Professionals Network to a broader audience. So as they've mentioned my name is Rebecca Milne-Muller, or Beck Milne-Muller, and I'm a Senior Policy Officer at Department of Customer Service, and I'm also the current chair of the IPAA Young Professional Network. For those of you who don't know, IPAA New South Wales, they are a non-profit, non-partisan, member-based organisation that promotes excellence and pride in public service across Australia. IPAA believes in power for purpose. So when we work together for the public good, we enact meaningful change in the places we love, which feels like it fits perfectly for this morning's complex session. As for the IPAA YPN, we exist to create a connected, empowered community of young professionals across the New South Wales public sector, fostering growth, collaboration, and purpose, regardless of location or level. So everything we do is about building that sense of community and opportunity. So as most of you might have heard, one of our flagship events is the IPAA Policy Hack, which is essentially a space for young professionals to tackle real-world policy challenges with creativity and collaboration. This year was our biggest yet. We had 165 individuals across 33 teams that came together to compete, and it's an incredible show of engagement and energy from across the sector. Essentially, the purpose and process of the hack is to invite young professionals to deep dive into current policy issues, apply critical thinking and innovation, and work in diverse teams supported by feedback from their senior leaders. In this year's challenge, we had teams had 2 weeks to ideate and develop solutions to some of the most pressing challenges in the public sector. The 3 topics were on affordable housing, which we'll hear more about today from our winners, safe online gambling, and gender diversity in the workplace. And I've got to say, the caliber of submissions was outstanding. They were so well researched, creative, and fiercely competitive. So it was an absolute pleasure to be able to see all of those finalists present at the final session. Before I hand over to Alana to give you more details on their submission, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible effort behind the event. So Ashna Rampal, who was my former co-chair of the YPN, really made this event fly over the years to get it to the point that it's at now. And Adele D'Souza has taken it to the next level. So I really wanted to acknowledge them and thank them in this space for their leadership and their vision for this event. And also to the entire working group and volunteers and participants. It's a massive event to come through, and it's all volunteer work that brings it all together. So phenomenal work there. And that takes me to the highlight of today, which is introducing this year's Policy Hack winners, Alexandra, Alana, Sheridan, Samantha, and Alex. The judges noticed that their submission was exceptionally well researched, cited international examples, and demonstrated creativity and innovation. So I'll now hand over to Alana to share some more details with everyone.
Thanks, Rebecca. Hi, everyone. I'm Alana. I'm an assistant behavioural advisor from the Behavioural Insights Unit at DCS. Now we're going to get into our submission piece. So our question was, how do we collaborate with partners to ensure that the design, delivery, and management of affordable housing meets the diversity of community needs? So the target group we chose were construction apprentices who need affordable housing near TAFE and job sites. What drew me to this question was the collaborative element and also the challenge to meet a very large diversity of community needs. This is something that my team at the BIU do every day. So I found the question very relevant to my work. So now I'm going to actually pass over to the rest of my team and they're going to explain our submission in a little bit more detail. So over to you, Alex.
Thanks, Alana. My name's Alex. I work in Major Projects Division at Treasury, specialising in infrastructure policy. And every day I hear in my work how New South Wales is in a double bind. We're facing a housing crunch and a shortage of skilled tradies just when we need homes built fast. Apprentices are essential to fixing the housing crisis. However, research from the National Centre for Vocational Education showed us that attrition rates for trade apprentices, which includes construction, is around 51%. And the common reasons for those non-completions include financial pressure and long commutes. At the same time, census data and national analysis shows us that more than 82% of owner-occupied homes have at least one spare bedroom and 53% have two or more. New South Wales data mirrors this national pattern. So born was our idea that if we could unlock even a fraction of these rooms safely and fairly, we could ease rent pressure, boost apprentice retention, and help homeowners age in place. I'm now going to hand over to Sheridan.
Thanks, Alex. So hi everyone, I'm Sheridan, a Senior Policy Officer from CIRA, working in home building compensation regulation. So our proposal for the hack was called Trade and Save, a supported home share pilot, pairing homeowners with a spare room with construction apprentices who need affordable housing near TAFE and job sites. The rent would be discounted, set at 60 to 80% of local market rents and under 30% of an apprentice's income. In exchange for this discounted rent, apprentices would help with light household support. So think things like bins, gardening and tech help, not care work. Homeowners would also receive modest rental income, which our research suggests would help in the cost of living crisis we're currently facing. Our research across census data and pre-existing New South Wales government initiatives indicated that prime spots for a pilot would include Hornsby and Parramatta due to spare room potential, TAFE access and proximity to construction job sites due to the National Housing Accord. For implementation, we considered aspects such as safety and fairness, which can be achieved through identity checks, police checks, written agreements, clear house rules, cooling off periods and fair utility charging. Over to you, Sam.
Hi, I'm Sam from IPAA, I'm a business analyst, and my job is to turn great ideas into practical systems. A key aspect of our question was about the effective collaboration with partners. So we envisaged partnering with an NGO that has an existing house sharing platform for matching candidates, case management and dispute resolution. We would also partner with TAFE New South Wales for outreach to the apprentices and to provide support for the program. And we would partner with local councils to help build community trust. This model isn't new. We leveraged pre-existing programs from overseas, such as intergenerational home share programs, exchange student hosting, and local initiatives for older women's housing. We wanted to keep our proposal fast and practical. We kept funding lean, so we're activating existing bedrooms and platforms rather than building new ones. We also designed our proposal to be scalable, which could be adapted for future use cases after the success of the pilot. So now that you've heard a bit about our proposal and understand how the policy hack worked, we'd like to each reflect on a key takeaway and share our learnings with you all. Thanks, Alana.
Thank you, Sam. So my key takeaway that feels especially relevant to all of us working in government is the value of practical, rapid policy design. So in the public sector, we're used to very long policy cycles. We analyze, we consult, we revise, and then we revise some more. We're trained to aim for accuracy and to be very rigorous, and very much rightfully so. But what the policy hack offered us was something very different. It was a safe space to step away from that perfectionism and to experiment with ideas at speed. So over the course of just a week and a couple of days, we were challenged to generate ideas, to test them very quickly, to reshape them and to constantly keep moving. The time pressure forced us to let go of any perfectionism. It encouraged us to prioritize being very creative, to get curiosity and to prioritize practical thinking over perfection. And once we set aside the instinct to get it right, we started thinking like real world problem solvers. So after that, the solutions we developed became far more innovative and grounded in what actually matters to the people of New South Wales. This experience for me is strongly connected to my work in behavioural science. Behavioural insights teaches us to experiment, it teaches us to test new ideas and to actually design for real people and their real lives rather than an idealised citizen. The hack actually created that same environment. It was an environment where we could break out of perfectionism, to challenge our biases, to build different prototypes and to actually focus on what drives behaviour change in the real world. It reminded me that innovative policy isn't just about being creative, it's also about being evidence-based and human-centred and being willing to try and learn. For me, the policy hack was a powerful reminder that we don't need perfect conditions to design meaningful policy. Sometimes we actually just need permission to think outside the box and test new ideas. When we create environments that encourage learning and human-centered design, we actually open the door for solutions that not only are innovative, but are genuinely implementable. So those were my key reflections from the policy hack, and I'll pass over to Alex for her reflections.
So my key reflection that I took away from the policy hack was around the power of implementation. My experience with policy development has typically followed a well-established cycle, which you can see on the slide there. In the process, I've been deeply involved in those first 6 steps, so identifying and scoping up an issue and shaping the policy, analysing options, coordinating across agencies and helping to reach a decision. But when it comes to implementation, that's usually handed over to our delivery agencies, the teams that are actually procuring or delivering the infrastructure, programs or services or projects. And then often my involvement has picked up again much later during the evaluation phase when we look back and see how the policy has performed. The policy hack experience challenged this routine for me because instead of focusing on a document or a perfect introduction, our team spent 90% of the time thinking about the implementation. We asked questions like, how will we deliver this policy using our partners? Or how would we recruit and engage stakeholders? How would we address risk and safeguards? It was refreshing to spend almost no time polishing a perfect document or worrying about the name. And the hack made me realise that implementation isn't just a step after a decision. It's about anticipating challenges and aligning resources and working across agencies and partners to make sure a policy can stick in the real world. It's about bridging a gap between aspirations and reality, mobilising systems so that government commitments can become tangible results. It's something that maybe should be at the centre of every one of these steps, and how we implement policy, ultimately, it drives the behaviours and outcomes we want in government. So it made me realise it is really, really important. If we don't think deeply about implementation from the start, I think even the best policies can fall short. So my key takeaway from the policy hack was a reminder that policy implementation isn't a last step and it shapes everything. And from now on, I really want to think about implementation from the start, because I think it's how we can turn good ideas into real impact. And handing over to you.
Hi, I'm Sam. Thanks, Alex. This hack showed me how being focused on the outcome with clarity and measurable targets drive effective design. My regular job as a business analyst, I'm regulating and administering the New South Wales energy sustainability schemes. So we're very much on the implementation end of the policies. So I echo Alex's reflections on the importance of an implementation focus when designing policy. But as someone who works in implementation but has very little experience with policy development, this hack was a really good exercise for me to think through policy design from the very beginning. I believe what helped us develop our proposal was that we started with the very clear outcome in mind. We had this question, which was very direct, and we used it to really focus in for our brainstorming. So if the question was very broad and it was more like, how do we improve affordable housing? It would have been just so overwhelming thinking about all the different things. We wouldn't know how to start. So we broke down the question and focused on the outcome that matters, meeting the diversity of community needs. We asked, who are the diverse communities who most need affordable housing? And then how could our solution have the greatest impact on the delivery and the management of affordable housing? we landed on apprentices as our focus group with the most impact, because without the skilled tradespeople, we can't build the homes or communities needed to make housing more affordable. The next focus of the question is, how do we collaborate with partners? This specific point really drove our creativity as we considered how we could incorporate every single aspect of the proposal, from day-to-day delivery to outreach and engagement with the policy. This prompt to focus on partners really became the core of our proposal, and I think encouraged us to think creatively. To keep the proposal relevant, the hack also gave us marking criteria, which became our indicators for success, and which we referred to constantly. You might normally think marking criteria might limit innovation, but I think it did the opposite and forced us to develop creative ways to make sure the proposal addressed them, especially in the compact time frame that we had. It is also so important to recognize that we had access to mentors to give us critical feedback throughout. Having experienced voices challenge our assumptions and providing guidance in the fast-paced environment helped us refine our ideas and stay focused on the outcome. This solid feedback loop ensured that our solutions were practical, aligned with departmental priorities, and grounded in real-world experience. So overall, this exercise taught me that having a clear outcome and measurable indicators for success drove our creative process. So it really matters from the beginning how that very first question is asked. And over to you, Sheridan.
Thank you, Sam. So working on the policy hack was a really rewarding experience for me. Working in a senior policy role on a day-to-day basis, I already see the importance of collaboration with other agencies and our stakeholders in policy work. But working on the hack really magnified the importance of collaboration and connection in policy. One of the things I really valued was the chance to meet new colleagues from across the public service and see firsthand how the diversity of our roles, experiences, and ideas can shape a strong policy proposal. As part of the hack, we were able to choose the question we felt most passionate about. This meant that we started the hack aligned and excited to approach the question, which really set the tone for our collaboration. We had 5 members in our team from various departments and agencies, bringing expertise and knowledge from areas like home building, infrastructure, economic development, insurance, behavioural insights, pricing, regulation, essential services, customer service, transport, and law. So a lot of different backgrounds. On top of that, we all had unique career experiences outside the public service, which added even more to the depth of our discussions. When we began exploring the housing challenge, we quickly realised it wasn't just one issue, it was a range of interconnected problems. For example, a key hurdle we considered was the psychology behind getting homeowners to share their homes with a stranger, and that stranger stereotypically being a young man straight out of school. Having a team member with direct experience in behavioural insights sparked conversations on this issue, which allowed us to think deeper on this issue and really consider what motivators exist for homeowners beyond altruism. This thinking led us to a solution. Apprentices would provide light support in exchange for modest rental income, which is a practical and mutually beneficial concept in a cost of living crisis. The diversity in our team didn't just help us solve problems, it also sparked innovation. In our kickoff session, we brainstormed a range of policy options, and the mix of perspectives meant we could challenge and refine ideas continuously. That process made our proposal more reflective of the community we serve as New South Wales public servants. Through leveraging our backgrounds and experiences, we were able to consider the issue presented to us holistically. For me personally, this experience really reinforced how critical cross-agency collaboration is, not just for solving issues, but for managing risk and ensuring our solutions reflect the diversity of our community. It was a great reminder that when we bring different voices together, we create better outcomes. So I think on behalf of the whole team, I can say we are really grateful for the opportunity to have taken part in the hack, and we're excited to take these reflections and turn them into action in our various roles. But to connect these learnings to the bigger picture, I am very excited to now introduce Rebecca Pinkstone, the inaugural Chief Executive of Homes New South Wales, a new division sitting within the Department of Communities and Justice, driving change in housing and homelessness, who is going to share some of the incredible work happening in this space. Over to you, Rebecca.
Thanks so much, and thanks for that fantastic presentation. I'm sure everyone online can see why you're the winners, because your thought that went into the policy hack and just thinking through all of the different issues you need to grapple with when you're developing a policy, trying to solve a policy problem. It was just on display in that presentation. So thanks very much. I think that someone is directing this for me, are they? Because I don't think I can do it. Might pop on to the next one, the next slide. So what are we doing in Homes New South Wales? We're dealing with these types of issues at Homes New South Wales, really grappling with the housing and homelessness crisis and what we as government can do about it. And I suppose traditionally that has been focusing on things like providing public and social housing. So subsidised housing for people that are most at risk of homelessness, where people come into our homes and pay 25% of their income on rent. But we've also been taking a broader look at how we enable different types of housing for different groups of people. And affordable housing is one of those types because under affordable housing, people are able to earn more money and pay more rent for the housing that they're renting. And it means that you can create greater diversity. And some of the work that we've been doing with estate renewals, you'll probably hear about the Waterloo project or Tilapia. Some of those large estate renewals is about how do we take ageing public housing blocks that are no longer fit for purpose, they're not accessible, they're not environmentally sustainable, and they cost a lot of money to run because they're just not energy efficient. And how do we take them and redevelop that housing into more public housing or social housing, absolutely. But also, how do we use that to enable other different types of housing, including affordable housing and also private market housing? So we've found that our role as an agency has broadened. It's no longer just about public housing, it's also about how we're enabling different types of housing for our community. Because I like to say we need more rental housing. We're in a rental crisis, and to do that, we need more rental housing of different types for different people. So I might just go through a couple of big things that we've been working on in Homes that are setting our strategic directions for the next 10 years. We were established last year. And it was really about bringing a number of government agencies together to focus on what we call submarket housing, non-private housing. And that included the Aboriginal Housing Office, the Land and Housing Corporation, all of the functions of public housing that were in the Department of Communities and Justice, as well as a policy and a contracting function. So we're now altogether 3,500 of us under one roof, trying to now determine what are our key strategic directions. So if I go on to the next slide. We've worked on two fundamental platforms that are setting our strategy for the next 10 years. The New South Wales Homelessness Strategy, which is how do we respond to homelessness in New South Wales and how do we work with non-government partners in our response, and how do we over time move the system from very crisis-driven to preventative. And then the next strategy is the Homes for New South Wales strategy. What do we want social and affordable housing to look like in New South Wales? Where is it now and where do we need to get to in 10 years to make it a really solid, strong part of our housing system? As you know, there's been a lack of investment for decades in social and affordable housing. And as a result, it only makes up about 4% of the rental market. So the solution will never be social and affordable housing on its own. But we do know that with the New South Wales government directions around planning reforms, investment in Homes New South Wales, that percentage is going to increase. So we want to make sure that we're really focusing our effort on the things that matter. On the next slide, we go through a couple of the strategies that are really underpinning what we want to do in homelessness. So to put it in context, every night in New South Wales, we have about 1,800 people sleeping in hotel and motel accommodation because they can't get into a specialist homelessness service. They're being turned away from that. And our government has made a commitment that no one will be on the street. So we really know that at that crisis end, not only does it not create the best outcome for people, it's really costly and expensive. We want to, over time, transform the way that we fund services so that we're looking at ongoing housing, ongoing interventions through NGOs, and we really reduce our reliance on hotel and motel accommodation as much as possible. Our aim is to make homelessness in New South Wales rare, brief and non-repeated, so that every effort that we put into the system needs to be focused on those 3 platforms. The majority of people that come into homelessness services get some help and go away, and they resolve their own need over time. But there is a very small group who are cycling in the system, who are coming into social housing, out of social housing, into crisis accommodation and out of that, and then into private market and institutions because they're getting picked up in the system. We need a much, much, much more dedicated focus on that group, and that's often called a housing first response, and we need to look at how our system reorients to service that group, because at the moment they are falling through the gaps. But some of the key things that we're going to be doing is really focusing in on local collaboration, getting services together to understand who the priority cohorts are in their community and respond effectively. So bringing back that local network and really focusing on client outcomes. To support that, we're bringing in a new street sleeping register, which will help us map every single person who's sleeping on the street, who is their key service provider, and how are we responding with housing. And that will be the first of its kind in any jurisdiction in Australia to really have that broad-based focus from government. And then we're investing in much more crisis accommodation. So you would have heard last week we announced $130 million for new crisis accommodation. We want to boost that part of the system and get out of hotel and motel accommodation. So a holistic strategy that over time meets our objectives. And then that's supported on the next slide with what we're going to do about social and affordable housing in New South Wales. So at the moment, we want to focus that says that everyone deserves a decent home and support if they need it. Not everyone needs support, but we want to make sure they've got support when they need it so that they can get into housing and sustain their tenancies over time. And what we've seen over time in public housing in particular has been a real rationing of resources to only the most vulnerable and those in need. And as a result, that's created really some conflicts for local communities. We want to use some of the new money that we have combined with our customer service approach to transform communities and say, if you're doing well, we want you to stay in community. We want you to pay more rent. We want a sustainable community. And that's a fundamental shift in the way that the policy has operated in New South Wales for the last 20 years. But it will create, we think, a real shift to sustainability for the social and affordable housing system over time. We're backing that up with more housing, $6.6 billion for new homes. And the real focus there is on upgrading our homes where they're very, very degraded, but they have potential and can stay there for a long time if we invest more heavily in them. And then for all other properties, we look at the potential to redevelop them and uplift the amount of properties on site, make sure they're accessible, make sure they're beautiful, and make sure they're sustainable for our community. And then finally, we need systems at work. So we need underlying service contracts and standards for all providers in the system that operate irrespective of where you live. At the moment, we've heard that there's too much fragmentation, and we need to bring an approach that says, what are the standards we have for social and affordable housing in New South Wales, and how are we investing in both government service delivery and non-government service delivery to deliver those outcomes for us. So on the next slide, that sounds like a lot of work, and it is, because it's 10 years of work. But we really are focused on and have used the policy process to drive those outcomes. So a really deep engagement with peak bodies, with our tenants, with academics and industry experts to say what is working in our housing and homelessness system at the moment, what isn't, and what are the reform directions we need. And so I feel like we have a really clear platform for change in New South Wales as a result of that policy work. But nothing is more important to me than customer and tenant voice in the way that we do our work. And that's why, as a result of the changes, we've also brought tenant participation as a major focus of our work. In New South Wales, we manage around 90,000 properties. We have 260,000 residents. We're the largest landlord in the Southern Hemisphere. So for me, tenant voice is critical to our performance as a landlord and to making sure that we're doing the right thing by our customers and our tenants. So we have gone through a major reform internally in Homes New South Wales to invest in tenant participation and re-establish tenant voice in all of the districts in which we operate. And for me, that's an essential partnership that will mean that as we're doing these strategies and implementing our reforms, we can hear directly from our tenants about what works, what doesn't, and what we might need to change for our service delivery. So if we go on to the next slide. Sorry, the one after that. We put lots of little breaks in there. So that's just for me to take a breath. Why we're reviewing our policies? Well, we have a strategic direction to do it, but we have lots of reasons to drive policy change. A big one for us at the moment in Homes New South Wales is to avoid duplication. We've brought together all these different parts of government, all doing their own individual things. There is extreme duplication. We need to bring ourselves back together and say, how can we drive efficiency in the way we develop policies for the system? And how can we implement it consistently? So avoiding duplication is really important in our line of work at the moment as a new agency and a new entity. We want to make sure that they're accessible and they're simple and that they're consolidated so that people know where we stand and why. And we have heard consistently from our tenants and from our peak bodies and our stakeholders that it's just really difficult to understand why we make decisions when we do. And so streamlining and making those accessible is really, really important. I've talked about the customer centre. We need to put customers at the centre of the work that we do. And obviously there's legislative and practice changes that we need to drive. And in some of those areas, they will require legislative change to support our work into the future. So on the next page, I just wanted to go a little bit through our approach, because what we've had to do in Homes is really bring together policy excellence, and Mel Siddle from our team worked with the team around the policy hack, but we have created a new policy and strategy function in Homes that brings together different parts of those agencies that came in under us in Homes New South Wales to really guide our work and provide a centre of excellence for our work. And they have driven those strategies across. And just like we talked about earlier with our colleagues, some of who sit in central agencies versus line agencies, it's a very similar approach for our policy and strategy team. They are there developing policy and strategy with the voice of our staff and the voice of our tenants, and then those get implemented by different parts of Homes New South Wales. So the policy process that you've gone through there also exists in agencies where we're doing and implementing the work as well. We really need to prioritise our effort, because there's lots of changes we could do, but we need to focus on what's going to make the most change. What's going to make the most change for our staff in terms of efficiency, our tenants in terms of customer service, and applicants in terms of customer service, and the system as a whole, because there's lots of things you can do, but we have limited resources, and so we need to make sure we're prioritising our effort to best effect. We need a strong policy team and the knowledge and the oomph to make that happen. And every single part, either centrally or at line agency, needs that as well. But we also need to drive collaboration and understanding across different parts, because no matter how great our policy team is, they need that voice of what's actually happening on the front line, or what's the policy directions within government that are changing. We need to collaborate on many levels to make that home. And then for us, really using a standard policy development process has been critical. Setting up a policy subcommittee that reports to our executive, bringing together policy leads, setting up clear project plans and policy work so that we're really clear about what we're doing collectively and the timing of that across our division. So if we go to the next one, I think this is the next one and the last one. So for us, we really like to use some guiding questions and methodology in the way that when we're reviewing policies or developing new ones, firstly, does it align with our strategic directions that have been signed off by government? If it doesn't, there's going to be a big push to try and get that prioritised as a piece of work internally. Do we really need to do this in policy? Or is it a different pathway we need to take? Is it a procedure? Is it a guidance note? Is it a regulatory change? Really thinking through what is the best lever to pull to get your outcome. Should we be consolidating at any chance? Can we consolidate the policy process? That's a big one for us in Homes because we've had so many different entities within Homes New South Wales. We need to look and say, shouldn't we just have one that fits across our division? Is it out of date? Is the policy out of date? Or is there something else that's coming through from another agency that's going to impact it? So looking at the broader ecosystem of government policy and what might be influencing, for example, our buy local policy has tremendous impact on how we're procuring our maintenance services and our new build program as a result of that policy change in another area. Whenever we can, we're looking at how we could simplify our policy, make sure it's clear, make sure that it's understandable to the community, to our tenants, to our customers, making sure that we really are clear about that simplicity. And then how can we improve it? Is there something that we could do differently by consulting with our tenants, our peak bodies, our stakeholders that we've missed, or that is a way that the policy is being interpreted incorrectly that we could change? That's quite simple. Let's do that as soon as possible. And are we always being informed by feedback? So we have got obviously our tenant advisory group structure now that provides that direct tenant voice, but we also have other governance structures to bring together academics, peak bodies and experts in housing and social housing policy that we also test our policy change with. And that means that we're getting feedback from lots of different parts, both from government, with our government stakeholders, with our external stakeholders and from our customers. And those questions are guiding our work as we go through these big strategic changes in New South Wales. So I might leave it there, and then I think we have time for questions. Over to you.
Thank you. You can take the slides down now so that we can see everyone a bit better. I'm going to ask a quick question. Well, it's not a quick question, but I wanted to integrate both of the things we've heard about today. Rebecca, I agree with the policy hack winners that policy is not about writing a shiny document, but it's actually about thinking through implementation. So I wondered how that is being that kind of idea is how you're seeing implementation feeding into policy thinking within Homes New South Wales.
Yeah, well, I suppose this is the beauty of having now one entity that brings together service delivery with also the policy function, because previously they were split, and I think it's very difficult if you're not getting that live feedback. But I think that what we're doing is we've got the voice of our staff and our tenants directly into the process. So as we're going and refining policies, or for example, Mel's area where we're actually changing the policy settings completely. So we're ending fixed term tenure, for example. It's fine to say you're going to end fixed term tenure, but we know that that is a huge piece of work, not just rewriting the policy, but how our whole IT system works and issues leases and renews leases. So a whole IT component. How are we looking at those a full suite of implementation. And I will say that one of the things that we've had to do is go back to basics around project planning and policy delivery 101. You know, it's fine to say we're going to change this, but actually we need a project plan that maps every stream of change that's needed. Community engagement, tenant participation, IT, our own staff retraining, because they need to be trained in the new way of working. So that policy subcommittee for us is quite critical, because it means that we're bringing rigour to the policy process from the start. I think often we've all worked in government, and the policy is the announcements made about the policy, but the real detail comes in when you're implementing it. And that's often when the real cost comes in as well, because as soon as you start changing IT systems or training thousands of staff, that has a huge cost as well. So really having a lot of rigour and discipline at the front end of the policy scoping and planning process is really important for us.
Great, thank you. Good to hear about all those elements. Now we have Jocelyn. When you, hopefully you can turn your camera on and introduce yourself before asking your question, Jocelyn.
Hi there. I'm turning my camera on, but my desk is really low, so I'm crouching under it because I wasn't expecting to be asked my camera. Thank you. I had a couple of questions. My first one, though, so I don't jump ahead in the queue, was how the Policy Hack Group decided on that target on construction workers as their target.
I'm happy to answer that one. Thank you,
Thank
Jocelyn.
you.
So I guess our question was about providing affordable housing to a diverse range of people, which is an incredibly broad question, and it was quite debilitating at first, I guess, trying to decide who to target, noting we only had a week to really research and formulate a proposal. So we decided as a group that we really wanted to niche down and consider the housing issue at a higher level. Both Alex and myself both work in the home building and infrastructure space in different capacities, but we both have that experience and background. So with that experience and our research indicated that apprentices are low income, and those low wages and high costs of living for everyone at the moment is ultimately impacting completion rates of apprenticeships and is thus creating a skilled labour shortage. So it's a bit circular. And that's why we decided that they need support, and by supporting them, it has the potential to assist the overall housing crisis. But I suppose that the benefit of the model that we kind of designed and chose to pursue for our proposal was that it can be scaled quite easily. So we can then target other groups that need affordable housing. So some of the other demographics we were thinking of were, essential workers, aged care workers, and nurses. So yeah, I suppose that's the reason that we chose construction apprentices in the first place.
And Sheridan, it was very clever because you're dealing with two issues in one approach. So you're dealing with the one of the key drivers for the construction cost at the moment is lack of workforce. And then you're also dealing with it from an affordability perspective from the actual apprentices. So I suppose for us on the panel, it was a clever take on dealing with two issues that are both driving high problems in housing affordability in New South Wales.
Great. Yes, it is a fantastic two birds, one stone, brilliant idea. And I really hope it gets picked up in implementation. Now, Jocelyn, I know you had a second question, but just to make sure everyone has a go or has the opportunity, we'll turn to Kate. And if we get time, we'll come back to your second question. Kate may not be able to find her camera, and so I'll ask it for her. Kate asks, did you look at the capital gains tax exemption for in the way that homestays are classified? Otherwise, there could be a disincentive for homeowners to participate if their home has otherwise I don't understand the full capital gains tax implications, but hopefully you know a little bit more than I do.
Yeah, I can jump in there. I am not a tax expert for sure, but I think under the current I think it's Commonwealth tax settings, homestays, they're often classified as income producing. So if you open up a spare bedroom and you have someone renting that spare bedroom, you can lose part of your main residence tax exemption, a CGT exemption. So that is like a genuine disincentive for people who might otherwise open a spare bedroom to an apprentice or to a student. I think there is a separate ATO interpretation ruling that if you have a student, for example, an international student through a program like AHN, that can then be assessed as not income. And so there are certainly like Commonwealth ATO rulings that try to address those disincentives. But I think more broadly, when you look at some of the implementation challenges to addressing the housing crisis in general, there are a lot of barriers and our own sort of government red tape and implementation challenges. And so I think there's probably some work to be done in reviewing those rules and some of that red tape that unintentionally discourages measures that go to improving housing in New South Wales. But yeah, it's a good question.
Capital gains tax has a number of problems associated with it, I think, that link in with housing, and it would be good to see some reform on that. If anyone knows anyone in the Commonwealth that could do something about it, that would be great. So we have now a question from Geeta. Hopefully, hello, great.
Hello, I'm Geeta and I work with Sharon in Home Building Compensation Scheme. I am very passionate about housing and have been working in home building sector for last 20 years. So well done, team. You've actually nailed it. I was so impressed hearing what you've come up with. My question for you guys, anyone, what was the most challenging part of your hack?
Yeah, I can take that question. I think I speak on behalf of my whole team in that I think the timeline of a week was very challenging, having to think so deeply about a very broad issue in such a short time frame, put a lot of pressure on us, but it was really good because everybody came from so many different backgrounds. And we all brought a different strength, and I think that really showed in the time frame. We could each focus on very key areas of the submission and strengthen it within within our week. And I also think having to do that on top of our BAU as well was quite challenging. But yeah, it also, we were able to forge great networks across government in that time. And yeah, I think even though it was very challenging, it was also very rewarding.
Yeah, well done. Now you've done a great job in such a short amount of time. Yeah, my question for you, Louise, are you from IPAA, I believe, isn't it? So is there any opportunity for people like us who've been in the around for a long time to participate in such sort of hacks so we can collaborate and network and gain something out of that as well?
So I'm not from IPAA. I'm from the policy community of practice.
Okay, sorry.
IPAA, Rebecca's just jumped on to spruik next year's policy hack, so I can see that. Yeah. But Geeta, I will take your note that you know there could be interest in running this type of thing for a broader cohort to participate in. Is that the polite way of saying it?
Yeah, great. I don't want to call myself old. Yeah. All right, no, thank you.
From an IPAA perspective, the only thing I have to add, obviously we run the Young Professionals network, but I'm happy to pass back that there's interest beyond the young professionals. I do believe they're looking at a sector-wide hack. next year. I don't think they've made the formal announcements. I'm pretty sure they've picked 2 topics next year, but it's not, we do the Young Professionals Network focuses on the development portion of policy, so helping young professionals figure out what policy is and allowing, I think, the week in a couple of days, as the contestant said. I believe the hack that IP was looking at doing is a 1-day all-in hack. Yeah, someone's just found the link, the sector-wide hack. So I think they found 2 topics for the public sector, and I'm sure there's more information on that. But yes, that's a 1-day event that they're doing next year, which feels like it's hopefully from something that we've done with the policy hack over a couple of years. So if it's anything similar to that, definitely go check it out.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. But back to the experience of our winners this time, the ability to generate ideas at speed, reshape, draw on networks, draw on contacts, think about the partnerships, is really the experience of is what an experienced public policy professional, that is the lived experience, I think, and I think it's really great that you've been able to kind of have that time, because it's not necessarily about having the luxury to address long-standing issues, although that hopefully is happening in the background as well. Sometimes it is about that innovation and having a clear problem that you're trying to solve in hopefully not a day. That sounds a bit horrific, but I think it also sounds very interesting for the sector-wide hack. Now, we did have another question from Jocelyn as well about funding. And Jocelyn, would you like to come back and ask your question, or I can ask it on your behalf? Yes.
Sure.
Great.
I've got my camera in a more optimal placement now. Rebecca, you mentioned housing first, and you also mentioned how overrun homelessness services are. So I was just curious whether homelessness services are going to be receiving additional funding to implement a housing first approach, or how that sort of housing first aspiration becomes practice, I guess. I know it's really tricky. Yeah.
It's really tricky because no, we haven't got more money, but what we've got is we had a number of pilot programs that have been implemented. And this is one caution I will caution people around pilot programs, that what we've found in most areas, when you fund something on top of other things and provide more money, guess what? You get better outcomes, because we're dealing with really crisis systems, right? So when you fund them with more money, they do better. And then that real appetite to fund that systemically and have a budget allocation that funds those programs even when they work is really difficult. So I've really told the team we need to pull back from these sorts of pilot programs. Unless we're going to fund the system properly, we can't keep doing this, because we just end up tying ourselves up in knots. Yeah. So what we're looking at the moment is reconfiguring some of that money into a specifically housing first approach, which would be packages for rough sleepers, because we know that the cost to deliver support for that client cohort is over and above the mainstream funding. So that's the direction we're moving at, and we're just going to have to do that over time. And that means, of course, there'll be winners and losers, because there've been pilot programs funded across the state. But if we're serious about making change, we've got to embed some of these things systemically and stop all the pilots.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
Really sage words there, I think, because everyone loves a pilot, but the actual implementation, and it creates expectations that we should be thinking about what is the best way to deploy and make the greatest difference to the greatest number of people. Yeah. All right, we might finish up there. I wanted to thank everyone, Rebecca, Sheridan, Alexandra, Alana, Samantha, and other Beck. Congratulations to the winners. It was fantastic. I really hope that it is being picked up somewhere in, I don't know which government department, but I I assume someone will be looking at how to take this forward, because I would like to see it work, because I think it's a great initiative. Thanks everyone for your participation and your enthusiasm in policy as well, and we'll see you again next year.
So yeah, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.